what should human rights be? Now, this seems like a strange question, but if you think about it a little bit more, you'll realize that we don't really have a general understanding of what human rights should be. Different countries define human rights as different. So a clear example of that is the Europeans define privacy as a fundamental human right, whereas in the United States, privacy and data protection is more or less haphazard and not very well protected at all. So we have to think about what types of things we would want as human rights. And by the way, when I say human rights, I'm talking about things that allow for humans to live happy, to live happy, loving lives, long lives, healthy lives. So what are the things that would allow us to do that? What few things are so universal that those are the things that are human rights, that those are the things that no government, no man, no woman, no whoever, no person can take away from you? So let's start with the basics and work our way up. Obviously, every human being needs food, needs water, and needs shelter. Without these, we will die, right? Starting at the very basics. These are what the most fundamental of fundamental human rights. Without them, we cannot live. So we need a right to life, which is to say we need a right to be able to continue to live. And in order to do that, we start with the three basics: water, food, shelter. But there are other things that keep us alive that are important for our existence and for without which we could die or be killed. So peace. Peace is a fundamental human right because without it, we could die. If we're always involved in conflict, if we're always involved in war, then we will not live long, healthy lives. So now we have four fundamental rights. But what necessitates peace? Well, lots of things. Sorry, what creates peace? Lots of things create peace. There are certain freedoms that create peace, right? Your ability to move, your access to resources. If resources are more evenly distributed, then we don't have to worry about starving, about dying of thirst, and about not having shelter. So maybe an even distribution of resources is a human right. And although we're not going to create a definite list of all human rights to the exclusion of others, you can see how you can build up and make a case for what human rights should be. When we think about human rights, it's not just this phrase that we should use lightly. These should be things, whatever list we come up with, whatever list you come up with, these should be things that we as people enforce on the structures and systems and other people around us that we should have and that are not allowed to be taken from us because they are our rights. They're not privileges. We don't pay for them. We don't cast lots for them. We get them because we're humans. We get them because we're alive. And when you start to think about what those should be, you realize that the system that we have now for ensuring the distribution of resources isn't sufficient because many people have more food than they could ever eat, like we do in the rich and West countries, and some people do not have enough food. So if food, water, and shelter are fundamental human rights, then how is it that we can have a world order that allows some countries to eat and some countries to not eat? How is it that we can have a world order where some people are pushed out of are forced from their homes, and some people have multiple homes? When you think about fundamental human rights and how we interact with them, you realize that the structure of nations and ideologies and supply lines and wealth and capitalism and greed, they don't align with these human rights. And in order to enforce our human rights, we need to change the world fundamentally such that every human being has access to these things. Now look, my list and your list, they're going to differ, I'm sure. Personally, as a privacy professional, I think that privacy should probably be a fundamental human right that no human being can, or structure or system can take away from you. But if that's on your list, that's fine. The truth is, you are not necessarily going to die if you don't have privacy. But you make the case for different things as we go on. But regardless of your list, it will always have food, water, and shelter on it. And if that's a fundamental right for every human being on this planet, you begin to realize that the way that we do things now simply won't cut it. We simply don't live in a world that honors human rights the way that human rights should be honored. Instead, we have a system of human privileges, and we do not have human rights.